Well, so some of you have asked me about a new. Some of you have asked me about a new operation because we had such great success with the egg during the Rona thing, and I've devised a new one. And again, you must pay attention to this and follow it exactly. Now, before I get into it, I'm going to tell you what inspired this and why you have to be very careful on the instructions I follow, because a magical operation requires every element of it to be thought out. And if it's not thought out properly, it can be backfired. Now, I'll give you an example of a magical operation that backfired spectacularly. Do you remember when Trump was elected, they had the Trump binding spell? And I said every one of these involved in this Trump's binding spell, this because Trump never did them any personal harm, it will come back on them and it will probably kill them or destroy them because they hexed someone who had not personally done them any harm. So they all did the Trump binding spell, these idiots, right? Now, how did it come back on them? Well, they were all of the same demographic that would have rolled their sleeves up and got every single needle into them from the needlecraft because of the them it was a political statement. You took the needle, who and now they're all being killed by it, right? Or they're looking at all kinds of diseases down the road. Who and they were Americans who brought this is the irony of magic. Who brought the jab into the USA? Trump. Operation Warp Speed. Who took Operation Warp Speed? The ones who hexed Trump. If that's not a spectacular backfire, I don't know what is. So anyway, this brings us to our operation. Now we know how the egg one. This one will be quite different. What we're going to do in this one is we're going to prevent the globalists from implementing their plans. Now, before that reason why I mentioned the Trump binding spell at the beginning is do not do anything that names a name of a globalist. So don't try to hex Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, or any of them. Okay, what we do is we take their magic and use it against them. So I would suggest thinking of something like you will have nothing and be happy. You could your intention will be I will have everything and be very happy. Build back better, build back better for me. The great reset, the great renaissance. Just think of it this way. Now, how are you going to do it? It's a simple routine, but listen to me. You have to follow this exactly careful. This operation, word for word, because there's potential for bounce back. So that's the first one. Don't, in your intention, name any. And you can say, "Oh, Gates is evil." No, he didn't attack you personally by name. He didn't set out to attack you personally. Okay, that's why the Trump binding spell went back. He never went out to those people personally. Okay, first thing. Okay, because this won't be done on a particular night because of I'm going to explain right now. It's going to involve frog spawn, or newt spawn, or toad spawn, amphibian spawn, in a pond, in a lake, in a puddle, in a ditch, wherever. In Ireland here, you get a lot of frog spawn in farmers' ditches. Now, so I'm doing this now because the frog spawn is coming up not too long from now here in Ireland and in the UK and Northern Europe. Those of you in the southern hemisphere, I don't know what the situation is there regarding amphibians and spawning. Wait till then. How the operation is done is you get an apple, any kind of apple, it doesn't have to be organic or anything, there's an apple. And you need a piece of thin paper that will dissolve easily, ideally toilet paper or rice paper or something like a tissue paper. But if you can't get that, the thinnest white paper you can find. You're going to write an intention, but not directly wording it on the paper. So if you say something like, they won't bug me anymore with eating bugs. In your head, do a little scribble, or some, if you're good at sigils, make a sigil. If you don't know how to make sigil, write a little doodle, a shape that comes into your mind as you're thinking, they're not going to bug me by making me eat bugs. That kind of thing, you know. I will own everything and I will be very happy. You see, look for all their things like that, you know, all those kind of mantras, you know. Um, Kind of thing is like, I love my gas stove and I will keep it forever. This kind of thing. A carbon tax will never exist. You know, that kind of a thing. The global, and you're just doing a doodle or a simple shape or something on the paper, but be very focused and really built up in your head, you know, when you're doing it to a real extreme point. Maybe even watch a Klaus Schwab video beforehand, but don't mention his name in this thing. Don't write it down. You know, you can think it in your head, but don't write it down. And don't wish them any harm in your head. Just laugh at their absurdities and say these people are so deeply profound. They're trying to destroy human happiness and existence. You know, they will, you know, the Davos criminals are in chains, this kind of thing. Not naming them as individuals, okay? Something like that. Be creative, okay? Don't tell anybody online. Like you did this last year. Some of you autistics who don't listen to the full video, don't write down in the fucking comments what you wrote. It has to stay secret in your own mind, right? Then when you write the thing down, get a knife and pierce the apple. Push it into the apple, right? To create a slot. Fold up the piece of paper. This is why it has to be small and thin. And push it into the slot in the apple, okay? With the knife and push it. Make sure it's down below the surface. It's now inside the apple. The intention is now in the hands of, it's now becoming like a Venus birthing thing, okay? Now you have to take the apple and peel it. Take as much as the peel off as you can. Now listen to those of you who are on the THC or the autistic spectrum, listen very carefully to the next part. Do not eat the apple shavings of the skin. Do not feed it to your pets, and do not put it in your compost bin. Either burn it in a fire if you have a fire, or chop it up in small pieces and flush it down the toilet. But you have to get rid of the skin. So basically, you'll have an apple. It could still have the core on top of the stem. That's mostly got most of its it's just the flesh exposed. And don't post pictures of them online either. That's another fucking thing is it. And so on. So it's an apple that's been peeled, okay, and that's it with the intention deep inside it. Now you've got to wait. You've got to do this when you find out where frogs spawn, toads spawn, or newt, any kind of those amphibians have mated, and the spawn is in the lake or in the ditch or in the pond or whatever. And then get the apple, and if you can, it's best with frog spawn. It works the best because the way frog spawn is a kind of a mass. I've had much more success doing this over the years with frog spawn. Place the apple gently into the middle of the frog spawn in the water and let it just sit there floating, whatever. If you can't, drop it into if it's like it's hard to get in there, but you see the frog spawn or newt spawn or toad spawn, just throw the apple in there, plop it in there, but make sure try not to hit the frog spawn or cause injury or damage. What happens then is that the apple dissolves and eventually the paper dissolves in the water. And the tadpoles which hatch from the eggs will be swimming through the water in their fish state, and the intention will be going into their bodies as they're swimming through the water. Now the important part is the metamorphosis, when they transform from a tadpole into a newt, a frog, or a toad. This is the magical thing because they literally transform into a different species. And then what happens is the intention is now in an animal with a very complex nervous system, and it's also a breeding animal. And so whenever they have sex, their offspring will continue the intention. If we do this enough all over the world, we will have billions of frogs carrying these intentions to stop the globalists and the likes of the World Economic Forum and the rest from harming us. Remember, we're defending ourselves from harm. We're not attacking. So we're creating a buffer or a barrier from the globalist to make them inertia so they can't get us. It's a great one for kids. It's a lot of fun. You can make as many as you want, but only deposit them in a one at a time in the water. So suppose you walk down, you're on your work, you walk in the park and you see frog spawn in a pond there. You can put one apple in there without an intention, and then you're walking somewhere else and you see toad spawn or more frog spawn in a completely different body of water. You can go home and do another one again. Just keep them separate. It doesn't matter if two people do the same thing in the same pond, but you as yourself as an individual, you have to keep doing in different ones. And the idea is to create a perpetuating, frogs, amphibians in general, toads, are used in magic because they're very powerful creatures. They transform from a seed, like a little dot in the water, to a tadpole, and then the almighty metamorphosis into an adult amphibian. And they develop the complexity of their nervous system while they're in a living state. That's not done in a womb. And this is what makes them so remarkable and powerful. They don't go asleep like a butterfly and a moth and those other animals that transform. They go asleep. But the frog doesn't. As a tadpole state, it develops this new sense of nervous system. And this is what makes this a very powerful totem, these animals, these amphibians. They also will carry, because the water is carrying your intention, and we all know that water is a very powerful medium for carrying intention, that it enters through their bodies, and they're always bound to the water, and they breed heavily, and they create lots of millions of offspring. So by this time next year, we will have created billions and billions of intentions around the world to shut down the globalist agenda without doing any harm to the people involved, just creating a sense of inertia, a sense of a buffer stop in the zeitgeist. And think about that. That's what that is. Now, I've done this on a small scale, but I've never done it with someone else. It is a very powerful. Also, I got a message from the gods this afternoon that was delivered to me by the gods to show me that this it was time for this. And I can't tell you, of course I can't mention what it is, that to tell me that today is the day we do the apple and the frog working. So that's it. Remember, the important parts is don't write down anyone's personal name on the thing. Don't mention any personal names. Deal in concepts, globalization, digital ID, vaccine passports, mandatory vaccine, all that usual shit, and that's it. Concepts, not individuals, on the simple squiggle or doodle or whatever you put on the piece of paper. Don't spell out any person's name. Jesus, don't do that. And don't and deposit it in the apple and skin the apple, peel the apple. But the most important thing is get rid of those. If you can't get an apple, like a pear is good, but an apple is the most magical of all fruits. But a pear will work. And even like a starch thing, like a potato would work because they dissolve in the water. But the apple is because that's a pentagram inside it. The apple is the most, its connection to Eve, its connection to the planet Venus and everything like that. And the apple is like, in so much mythology, is a sacred food. So that's it. Don't eat the peels. Don't put them in your compost bin. Don't feed them to your pets or your animals. Flush them down the toilet or burn them. And that's it. And when you find frog spawn, get working. And it's, I can guarantee you, it'll be in one of those ones like the egg one, you'll have a remarkable feeling. And also, it'll work. This is us. This is the magic. This is our operation. They're vulnerable right now. I realized that by Davos. They're vulnerable. But learn from the Trump binding spell thing. Do not hex anyone personally by name who never set out to do you personally any harm. That's a lefty way of mentality. I mean, I knew at the minute they did that binding spell with Trump that they were all doomed. It's a lefty mentality that they get very personal. They're so infantile. And I was like, they named them. And I saw they'll all die and he'll kill them somehow. And I'm like, people said to me, I didn't kill them. He didn't go to. And he did. He gave them Operation Warp Speed, and every single one of them got the jab as a political thing to prove they're good Democrats. He actually killed them with his own spears, and that was the purpose of Operation Warp Speed, not to enforce the vax on all of us, but to actually get back at his enemies, to get them to destroy themselves, to give them the sword to commit their own harry-carry. And if you don't believe magic works, there's proof right there. And there you go. So be very careful. Don't try to be funny. Don't try to be clever. Just follow this basic, simple thing. An apple peeled, an intention on a piece of thin paper, put into the apple's flesh. The peeled after you put the apple through the skin. The apple placed amongst frog spawn, toad spawn, or newt swan, those kinds of things. This is why newts are all in magic, toads are magic, frogs are in magic, because of that metamorphosis thing. It's so powerful. And we won't have to worry about the globalists coming at us, because we will have put inertia inside them. So look after yourselves, and if you're into this kind of thing, if you're interested in folk magic and stuff, well, there's a good one for you. It's a classic, that one, and actually comes out of Irish folk magic, and it's also was also used in Germany as well. And yep, and good luck, sanguine gnosis, hail carbon nitrogen.